Welcome, dear viewers, to a new episode of Dialogue Horizon. In this dialogue, we'll cover about three subjects, important events which happened last week. The first, of course, about the peace negotiation and the talks about the implementation of the terms of the agreement, which was signed in Juba. Also, we'll cover the visit of the Attorney General of the ICC, International Criminal Court, Fatou Bensouda. We'll also talk about the delisting of Sudan from the sponsored states sponsoring terrorism as signed by Trump this evening in Sudan or this morning in America. And also the last part of the episode will cover the celebrations of the 21st of October, the million who took to the streets of Khartoum on Wednesday. I'm glad to have with me one of the key persons of the peace negotiations, our friend Ustad Ahmed Mohammed Tugud Lisan. He is the chief negotiator of peace in the GEM, Justice and Equality movement. He played a very important role in Juba, and I think he will be in a position to enlighten us and the viewers with the what happened and what will happen. And because the first question which I am going to ask you, Ustad Ahmed, is that some people, they say that the cost of peace, it seems that from the agreement which was signed in Juba last month, it seems that the cost of peace will be more than the cost of war. To what extent do you agree with this skepticism from certain people that talk about the cost of peace according to the agreement it will be very high? Do you agree to this allegation?
Well, thank you very much for receiving me today in this very important program. And through this window of opportunity, let me to congratulate the people of Sudan generally for signing or reaching a peace agreement, and also to congratulate the people who suffered a lot during the wars in many parts of Sudan in the last 2 decades. No doubt that by reaching the peace agreement last week, we closed a very long chapter of suffering, and we believe that by signing this peace agreement, we are also going to open a new chapter, not only the people who are in the war areas, but we are going to open a new chapter for the whole of Sudan. No doubt any peace, whether in Sudan or anywhere else, it is highly unlikely to get a full 100% supporters. Some people are reluctant to accept the outcome of the peace, and that for us is normal. But what is important for us that whether this peace actually addressed the real issues that real issues of concern to the people of Sudan generally, and the people of the suffering, or the people of the margin in particular. So I believe that what we achieved in Juba, if you compare it with the previous outcomes of the peace processes, whether in Abuja or in Doha or in anywhere else, achieved a lot and will contribute to design the future of the country in the near future.
Okay, so it is something you think it is something different than the other agreements which were held. You know it. Many agreements held in Doha and held in, but this one you believe that it's something entirely different than what was signed or what was, because that one did not stop the war, and it did not actually come to a conclusive and final peace to the country. So you believe that. But what about the cost? Do you think that the cost of the peace, according to the terms of the agreement, the 8 protocols of the agreement. Some of them, they involve a lot of or heavy cost of like rehabilitation, like repatriation, like compensation, like so the cost of this, what will be the effect? Because as you know, Sudan is in deep trouble these days. The financial situation of the country is not good, definitely not. So we have to lean on our friends and partners. Do you believe that these partners will support us?
Well, definitely this peace process facing a number of challenges. And one of those challenges is how to get enough resources to implement the peace agreement. The financial support that the government of Sudan committed to provide for the implementation of this agreement, if you compare it to the general outcome of the money that needed in order to implement the peace agreement, there is a big gap. And how we are going to fill that gap is a question, raise a question mark. But we believe that by exploiting our own natural resources and mobilizing and seeking support of the international community will help us to minimize any gap that will affect the implementation of the peace agreement. If you look to the figures that are assigned to this agreement and compare it to the actual amount that needed, may raise a question of whether the government of Sudan, under the current economical situation and given also the current the international economical situation, it's very difficult to mobilize resources. But although there is commitments from a number of countries around the region, the the countries, international countries, they are now working closely in order to hold a donors conference in Saudi Arabia in the coming few months in order to mobilize more resources. But I am very optimistic about the possibility of getting resources and implement the peace agreement. That's what we think, and so far the amount that is going to be provided by the government of Sudan, together with the amount of the money that we are going to receive it from the donors conference, and also the amount that we can get from exploiting our natural resources in the country, will help us to implement the peace agreement and to fill any gap that could affect the implementation of the peace agreement in terms of getting resources.
Because as far as I know, even the figure which was mentioned by the Minister of Finance, Dr. Hiba Muhammad Ali, she and from the term agreements, I think they are earmarking or they are allocating about 7.5 billion in 10 years. 7.5. This means every year you need about 750, which is not a big amount.
Yeah, this is this amount of 7,500,000,000 that's committed by the government to provide it over 10 years. It's not a big money if you compare it to the actual amount that's needed. But why this 700? Why not 600? Why not 1000?
Yeah, why?
Well, if we come to this conclusion after studying the need for rehabilitation and reconstruction of the situation in the war-affected area, and this amount is basically concerned Darfur, not including the two areas or not including the agreements of the other tracks. So this amount is just designed to rehabilitate the existing schemes and also to start new schemes. And we believe that this amount is not enough in terms of the amount needed, but actually for the government to provide this amount of 500 million per year, it's not a big amount of money if you compare it to the scale of the structure and the current situation of the people. In order to to bring the people to the normal life after this long suffering will take a lot of effort and a lot of work need to be done, and this amount of money need to be used for that purposes. And I believe that this is a very tiny amount of money if you compare to the actual money that's needed in order to bring about peace and stability in Darfur.
Sure, sure it is. I agree with you that the amount which is now earmarked for or is stipulated in the agreement is not a big amount. It's not alarming.
Exactly.
So it can be by the government. The government itself can avail this amount annually from the export of certain commodities as we gold or gum arabic anyhow. But still you believe that still we need for the agreement to be 100% in success. We need
resources,
the international community.
Yeah.
They have to give us a helping hand in the other issues like rehabilitation, building schools and hospitals, and these people they need a lot of money to settle and start subsisting on their normal life, which was mainly in agriculture. Or so still the international community is needed.
Yeah, actually, this amount of money is going to be allocated in a funds which we call the Darfur Peace and Development Fund. And this is considered as a pool fund that is going to provide money to the different mechanisms created by the agreement, whether that mechanism relating to the return of IDPs or refugees, or whether that's funds to establish the special court in Darfur, or to, issues dealing with the compensation and reconstruction. So for us, we don't see this amount is a huge amount or big amount, but what is important, the commitment of the parties and the commitment of the international community to keep supporting the implementation of the peace agreement until reach a successful result at the end.
Okay, Ustad Ahmed Toud, being the chief negotiator of at least one of the biggest factions of the agreement, the GEM, Justice and Equality movement, what will be the future of the troops of GEM? For example, for GEM and others will follow suit, but the future most of them will be reintegrated. What will be the future of these troops?
Well, yeah, if you look to the peace agreement, it contains a chapter addressing the final status of the armies, of the movements. Yes. And this comes within the context of having a comprehensive security arrangements.
Okay.
So in the security arrangement protocol, we agreed to, firstly, to have a full cessation of hostilities and ceasefire. And after that, we agreed to establish mechanisms to monitor the ceasefire on the ground. And then we agreed on issues relating to the demobilization and disarmament and reintegration. And then we come to the issues of integration of the movement's army. So if you look to the terms of this agreement, consistently the terms addressed how the forces of the movements is going to be integrated smoothly through stages into the national armies. So by the end of the transitional periods, all the armies of the movements are going to be integrated into the disciplined forces, whether that's the army, the police, the rapid support forces, or the other disciplined forces. So we believe that if this agreement is implemented correctly and without any difference, any hindrance, we believe by the end of this agreement, by the end of this transitional period, we will have I'm not saying a one united army, but at the end will address the final status of the armies of the movement, and possibly all the armies of the movement will join the official army
of the country.
Yeah.
What about the GEM itself? Will it be a political party after all this is resolved, after the DDR, the demobilization, disarmament and reintegration of the armies and troops? Now, what will be the future of GEM, Justice and Equality? Will it be a political party so that can run in elections, or what will be the future of the GEM?
It's a good question. This is not only GEM, but all the movements who signed the peace agreement agreed that by signing a comprehensive peace agreement, which includes security arrangements,
Yes.
Automatically the movements will transform from armed movements into a political parties.
Party.
And then now we consider ourselves a legally recognized political parties, have the full right to exercise our civil rights in order to practice politics on equal footing with the other political parties. So our ultimate objective, we want to be a political parties, to say bye-bye to the arms, weapons, and the life of the rebellion, and come to the civilian life, and to exercise politics in a civilian environment that will enable us to be equal with the other political parties, and then we're going to listen to the voters, and then to the people who we believe that they are our constituencies, in order to sit for the coming elections by the end of the
Okay, Ustad Ahmed. Okay, my last question in this issue, which is one of the issues we are going to cover.
Yeah.
Before we go to the second issue, a very important question that we all know that now we are talking in transparency. We all know that the political arena now, and especially the incubator of the revolution, the freedom and forces, the freedom and change forces, sometimes seems some voices are not very happy, or at least, or maybe to the extent opposing the whole peace process. And now you see in the East, people in the East, most of the factions in the East, they are adamantly against what was done in Juba. But here let us talk about the incubator of the revolution, the whole revolution. Now you are part of this revolution. Jim and the other factions of the revolutionary front, they are part of it. But we all know that there are some voices against or opposing this. They are not happy with this peace. What can you say about these people?
Well, what we noticed in the last 1.5 years since the signatory of the constitutional text and the creation of the transitional government and coming into being of the FFC, Freedom and Force, Forces of the Freedom and Change. So what we noticed, we supposed at the beginning to be part of the existing governments in all the organs of the government, from the Sovereign Council, the Legislative Council, and then the cabinet. But for obvious reasons, the armed movements, especially who belongs to the SRF, has been excluded from the final stage of the negotiations that led to the production of the constitutional text. And then the reason behind that, we believe there are some political parties within the FFC, they believe that the presence, heavily presence of the armed movements in the political arena right from the beginning will undermine the capability of those political parties to play a bigger role in the political arena, not in the near future, but for the long run. So on that basis, they designed the constitutional text in a way that prevents coming of the movements with their own terms, rather than the terms of the constitutional text, which they designed in order to control it. So from what we noticed, some voices started coming loudly about rejecting the participation of the members of the SRF in the political life. So that's why we spent more than 1 year negotiating in Juba, and the reason behind that simply because the major issues that we have been negotiating for quite a long time are the issues which are related to the constitutional text, which is designed by the FFC. Mm-hmm. So, and the reason they want to cut the ties of the, with the SRF and then they want to contain the political situation and mobilize it and until they reach to the final stage of the transitional period where they can prepare themselves properly and then go to the elections, and then after that they want to say to us in the SRF, come and join us. So it is normal to have some voices against peace, and it is normal to have some voices rejecting newcomers in the political arena. But at the end, we believe that with our will and determination and with our desire to achieve peace, we managed to reach a peace given given the circumstances and against all the odds that we experience in the peace process. At the end, we managed to have a very comprehensive peace agreement, which will enable us to come and participate with the people of Sudan to design the political future in the country. In the same time, we believe that it is the right time for us and for our friends and colleagues in FFC to sit together and reconstruct a successful and strong political party that represents the body that will support the transitional government. And we believe that it is the time to build bridges between SRF and the FFC for the benefit of the country and for the benefit of the transitional period and for the benefit of the transitional programs that we all agreed at the beginning of the establishment of this government. So irrespective of the reluctancy of some of our colleagues in FFC, we believe that still there is a room for us all to play in order to bring peace, stability, and move smoothly to a democratic transition.
So you are not you don't consider it as something as a challenge or risk to the peace agreement. This rejection or this escapism, or people are not the FFC. I mean. You are calling for enlarging the incubator, the FFC itself, so that it can be enlarged, and it includes all these signatories of the Juba, and then this should be something new to the. It should be helpful to the transitional period.
Yes, we agreed to have a preparatory conference in order to improve the FFC. This is number one. And also, by improving the FFC, we are going to strengthen the government. We are going to strengthen the possibility of implementing the programs of the government in the transitional periods. By improving the relations between SRF and FFC will help and will help both parties to sit and look to the problems of the country. Because what is happening in the East is not in isolation of the differences of FFC and SRF. Whether that's created because of the peace process in Juba, or whether this violence in the East driven by some political objectives pushed by some of our colleagues in FFC. At the end, this is the reason why I'm saying it is the time for us all, whether in FFC or in SRF, including our people in the peripheries, whether in the East or in the center or in the West. We need to sit together and create a conducive environment for the transitional period to go smoothly to the end of its
to the objective. Okay, yeah. Thank you. This is very good answer for this question. Now we have, as we said, we have another issue.
Good.
We move from the peace talks, and you cover that thoroughly well, and you have been very transparent in most of the parts of my questions. So we move to the visit, the historic, I call it historic visit of the Attorney General of the ICC, International Criminal Court, Fatou Bensouda, which visited Sudan, and she had, I think she had, from what she said in the interview, the press conference, that she had a good impression about her visit and meeting the. What is your comment on the visit of the ICC Attorney General to the Sudan? She was happy because she's mainly concerned about, they are talking about Darfur. She's allegations and she's warrants of arrest for al-Bashir and the others is because the atrocities and the systematic killing of people in Darfur. So mainly in Darfur, and you being one of the important factions of Darfur, political or military insurgents, can you tell us about your impression about the visit of Fatu?
Well, yeah, I think I do agree with you that the visit of bin Soda to Sudan is a historic visit. The International Criminal Court, since it came to force in 2002, Darfur case was a test case for the ICC. And the ICC tried many times to get access to Sudan during the period of the hostage regime, but they failed. In order for the ICC to proceed and to succeed, they need the cooperation of the countries. As we all know that the ICC has no an executive body that can enforce the decisions of the courts. They don't have a police, they don't have an army, they are not a state. So they entirely based on the cooperation of the state parties to the ICC or the cooperation of the international community in order to make the work of the ICC possible. So given the fact that the crimes committed in Darfur are heinous and serious crimes, but if you look, when the ICC came into force and when the case of Darfur referred from the Security Council to the ICC until today is a big gap, it's a long time. The ICC conducted thoroughly investigation and then indicted some individuals, issued warrant of arrest, but those warrant of arrest has been locked for quite a long time. They failed to implement it because of the lack of cooperation of the government of Sudan and of some of the regional and international countries. So by coming to Sudan, the Attorney General of the ICC, we believe the ICC opened a new chapter on how to deal with the situation of Darfur and in the ICC. The ICC's jurisdiction is based only in Darfur, as we all know. I think this visit will help to conduct more investigations, because the people who committed crimes in Darfur, not only those 5 people who have been indicted by ICC, but millions, but thousands of people who participated in this war are potential criminals, and we believe that it is the right time for the ICC to come and to carry on investigating and indicting the people, because the victims of Darfur have been waiting for justice for quite a long time. And we believe it is the right time to push the justice process into forward, and then to work, we all to work collectively to combat impunity and make justice available for the victims.
So you do you insist, or the game you insist that the Bashir and his other addicted person to be tried in the ICC, or because there is a question that Bensouda herself, definitely she saw al-Bashir and his group are on trial on totally different issue than the Darfur issue. They are on trial. Trial now is being going on for quite a long time about the coup of 1989 itself, well before the Darfur. So it will be only wise that if they go for a hybrid court, maybe in Khartoum, because if you take Bashir, for example, to to La Haye for the ICC. What about the other accusations?
Well, if you look to the agreement which we signed a protocol called Justice, Accountability and Reconciliation Protocol.
Yes.
And in this protocol, we created mechanisms to deal with the issues of justice. And we divided the issue of justice in 3 categories. Category number 1, for those who have been indicted by the ICC. And we said that those who have been indicted by ICC should be surrendered to the ICC. And in this regard, the government of Sudan should have fully to cooperate with the ICC in order to surrender the indictees. This is number 1. Number 2, we agreed also to establish a special criminal court to deal with the crimes that committed in Darfur. People now talking about a hybrid court, but if you look to the terms of the agreement which we signed and which is now become obligatory to both parties, we said that we need to establish a special court to deal with the people who involved in the Darfur crimes since 2002, and this special court should be established by a decree which enable this court to implement the international law in order to fill the gap of the jurisdiction, because when the crimes the crimes committed in Darfur, we don't have the crimes such as the war crimes or crimes against humanity or genocide in our Sudanese law. So that's the reason why we said let us bring the international criminal court, a criminal law, and establish a court which will enable the court to implement the international criminal law in Darfur. So it is good to have an idea of having a hybrid court, but the terms of the agreement is not saying hybrid court, rather than to have a special court to deal with all the violations that occurred in Darfur since 2002. And we believe the only way to bring about justice and help the victims to get justice and justice to be done, to establish a viable court that accessible to the victims on the ground, and the best place to establish such a court should be in Darfur. This is one. For the time being, we believe that it is the right time for the government of Sudan to take a decision and to hand over the indictees. Those who are now in Cobra prison need to be handed over to the ICC based on the terms of the agreement which we signed.
Okay.
This is the second issue. But thirdly, not only by handing over the indictees or establishing a special court or even hybrid court will bring about justice in Darfur, because the victims are in millions, the criminals and the suspects are in thousands, so you cannot bring all those people to court in 10 years. So, and the time will not in the interest of the victims. So the only way to make the victims feel compensated is to adopt a transitional process, that by adopting processes that will enable the people to be compensated through proper transitional justice in order to get the grievances, and also to open a new chapter for to our people to live side by side in environments aware of the violence and the repetition of the crimes.
Okay, that's a good end to the second section of our dialogue. The third section, as we told the viewers, that will be about the listing of Sudan in 1993 by America in the states sponsoring terrorism. This was, as you know, in 1993, 27 years ago. Now, last week, Trump, the President of America, he tweeted that he will remove Sudan from this list as immediately after receiving the compensation or whatever this 335 million. Today, it seems that Trump has already signed the executive order to remove Sudan from the list of states sponsoring terrorism. What will be the effect on the peace in particular and to Sudan in general?
Well, I think just in few hours, in the last few hours, we listened and followed carefully the developments that are taking place in the United States. President Trump signs an executive order delisting Sudan from the state sponsoring terrorism. And this is a huge step for the people of Sudan. And I congratulate the people of Sudan by delisting the Sudan from this shameful list. We believe by delisting Sudan from the state sponsoring terrorism will open a new chapter for the people of Sudan to improve firstly their ties with the international institutions, economical institutions and financial institutions, and then we are going to come back gradually to the international club without any hindrance. So from what I believe, this is a good opportunity, and we suffered as the people of Sudan a lot by these sanctions and this listing of Sudan from listing Sudan in the state sponsoring terrorism. So
it's something positive, good to the country, and it in indirect it will help the country or encourage others to go in the line of peace, to go for peace, and this will help your issue of
implementation of the peace agreement. No doubt, absolutely correct. This will firstly will open access to the flow of the hard currency to the country. The financial transactions go smoothly. The economical situation is going to improve gradually, and then this will enable us to have enough resources to not only implement peace agreement, but also to improve our services in all sectors of the life in Sudan.
That is good, Ustad Ahmed. We covered this. Dear viewers, we are very happy. We are glad that we have our friend Engineer Mohammed Farouk Salman. He joined the episode a few minutes ago, and now as we covered in the past 20 minutes or so the issue of the peace agreement, which you already last week we talked about that, but Ahmed Tugud was very transparent, and he covered quite a good part of the all questions which we are till now until we came to the visit of Bensouda, which was good. She had a good impression about the justice. Now we are talking about the hot issue, which is good. We want to know your own personal, being a very active member, Mohammed Farouk Salman, in the FFC, the incubator before enlargement. Till now, it's still the old incubator of the revolution. Now, at last, Trump signed the executive order for delisting Sudan from the list for this state sponsoring terrorism. What will be, first of all, I have to admit and I have to say that a credit should go to the civilian part of the revolution. This is definitely because they played a very important role. They pushed very hard. They did not fall in the trap of normalization relation with Israel, and they separated the two issues, and at last they succeeded in getting the signature of the President of America this few hours ago. He signed the executive order. What will be the implications on this delisting of Sudan from the state sponsoring terrorism, which was crippling us for 27 years?
First, let me welcome my colleague Ahmed Tugut, and really I came late here, and I will prefer to watch and attend him talking, and I think this is an opportunity that this brought to all Sudanese people to have a nice person and a man of integrity like Ahmed Tugut and his colleagues in Sudanese Revolutionary Front here in Sudan, and with Sudanese wording, we said the talks is good in it's the mouth of
Yeah, he said
his
it.
people.
He
And,
said, but this is you talk about his part well, very well about the peace. But now we want to know exactly. He already talked about this Trump decision. What is your own feeling?
I think yes, it's
Will it
truly
be-
and
will-
it was.
is it good?
It is good for sure. It's good for Sudanese people. We have to know that what the NIF regime done to the world is something we as Sudanese been accused with, because this was our government, and to be released from this, we have an obligation, as we do it in our inside and in our national agenda, and we are paying for faults that NIF brought us to, and for sure the world also being in trouble and being affected by how was our government or our ruling people doing around us, how is the region being, how is the security and the national peace being affected by such a regime. And as you have been listening to Ahmed, that even the International Justice Institute is being interested in healing the victims of this regime inside Sudan as well. And for sure we have to pay for these crimes that have been committed by this is something legal and part of the law, not we can see a lot of claims that we were victim of the same regime, so why should we pay penalties for its faults? We can claim this, we can see a lot of things like this, but for sure there is another victims, and the good thing of this that we did not pay for the government of the United States of America. We pay this amount as a compensation for the victims themselves. This is some sort of we might make it. However, we are poor. However, this amount of money being difficult for Sudanese people in this is a special condition to collect it. But the good thing is going to our victims, not going to the government. Or many people said, what the United States of America want from our money?
It goes to the families.
They already rich, but
to
for
the
sure
families,
it's not went this way.
Yeah.
Let us come back to the point you mentioned about should be counted for as a credit for the civil part of the revolution or the transitional government. Let me say it in another way. I think there was for sure different views in our partner, the military side and the civilian side, and especially Dr. Hamdok, when he was insisting to separate the issue of normalization with Israel, with the delisting of Sudan from the terrorism list. The good thing of this, I think this is something normal. Even inside the civil side, there was people brought the people came from the military and agreeing on normalization with Israel as a price for delisting. And even inside the military side, you will find some people that even don't agree on paying compensation for the victims of this act done by the previous regime. So this is some sort of what we can achieve if we adopt the internal and the national dialogue between all of this component. We couldn't consider it as like a conflict between the military side or the civil side. It's not like this. It is a Sudanese views to address a very, I think, crucial issue in the transition itself. So it is normal to have these differences in our views. But the good thing, we run this internally and patiently, and for sure, Hamdok get a credit that he got a vision and he insists on his vision for this separation. But the credit should go for all of us as Sudanese people and the transitional government.
What will be the good effect? As far as I know, the listing being in the list of the states sponsoring terrorism, I read about 5 very, very alarming and very painful sanctions by America to any of those who are in this list. For example, deprivation from any support, financial support, military support, technological support, and according to the stipulation of the act itself of the this act, it was, as you know, it was put on 1979.
Yes.
And it included 8 countries. Now, after removing Sudan, only 3 countries remain, which are Iran, North Korea, and Syria. Only 3 countries in this list. But what will be the effect in the economy of the country? Do you think that it will be helpful for the country?
Well, no doubt that will have a huge effect. But let me welcome my old friend Muhammad Suleiman first, and I'm pleased to have him here today. The impact of the decision of the President Trump of delisting Sudan from the state sponsoring terrorism will have huge impact. You know, Sudan has been in isolation of the international community financially for quite a long time. Sudan has been deprived from, technical and technological support from quite a long time. If you look to this studio, and not only this studio, but all over the organs of our state, you see we are lacking technical and technological support. We do need the access to get the recent and the advanced technological support from the international community in order to recover our normal life. And we need to go faster in order to reach the other nations, because we have been handicapped for almost 3 decades.
Yes.
And then we lost a lot. So we need to move forward, capitalize on the windows that opened now, and then build bridges with not only United States of America, but also to build bridges with the rest of the international community. And then through this angle, we are going to get economical, financial, and all the support that we need for our country.
So it's only good that now we have to prepare ourselves. We have to qualify ourselves to receive this help from the international community. I mean by we have to reorganize ourselves. We have to reorganize the incubator itself. We have to look to make peace reality on the ground. Otherwise, you will not get the support. Okay, Ustaz Engineer Muhammad Farouk. 2 days ago, on the 21st of October, there was big rallies in the country of Khartoum and different parts of Sudan about October 21st. This is one of the issues which we promised that the viewer that will cover this issue of what is your assessment on the rallies itself, the size of the rallies, the opposition, small groups of rallies against the whole revolution. How do you know? What is your assessment? Is this something good, positive, conducive to a coherence of the FFC again, or what is your assessment?
Yeah, I think FFC is paying for some deficiencies they made. Number one, I don't like the definition for the FFC as an incubator, or the people name it. It should be a political umbrella, and it should build an institutional and connected to the revolution value, democratic and participatory model of sharing power with others and building peace, addressing the issue of justice. All of these issues not being addressed well by the FFC for how it's been formed after 11th of April, and even this led to a problematic way of with the army people who joined the revolution and actually, yeah, and they refused to obey the order of the former president to do violence against the protesters. And I think this is mainly tell the lack of intellectuality and the lack of our political, actually, old pattern of doing politics, the way that this is not only the NIF, by the way, we can see all of these political forces, and this is what I always refer it to a post-colonial state centers. And this is how we are still now in what I always name it, and as Prof. Muntasir is always saying, a post-Inghaz syndrome, because people act, and this is how it was in 21st of October, as if Inghaz is still there, and people calling for again تسقط بس, and this is something we should come out of it, and we should work politically together to address the issues of development, the issues of fair and freedoms and rights and justice, and everything that this revolution allow our people to do it. We got a vehicle, we have to drive the vehicle instead of still doing the same trigger issues, as we are not brought down a dictator. We don't have a dictator. Now we are in transitional period to make it work and to succeed on it. This should not be done with the wishful thinking, or we don't have a magic stick to get everything done. We have to work hard. We have to do our homework on this period. I'm not happy with what happened in 21st of October, because we got more victims now, and we see the violence again. And I'm always saying that these military personnel need a lot of time to be qualified for the values of this revolution, and the very thing that is helping on this, the nature of this revolution, it is non-violence, and we should bring this these beliefs on our military people. And we should know that those people who came with this uniform are part of Sudanese people, and they should know how to act as Sudanese. We have to learn them for this. We have to prepare them for this. But the problem is still in FFC nature, in how it's so far behind building an integrity, a body that can really give a message clear to the people and the masses that their things is in a good hand, that's taking good care of it. We've been accused each other, by the way. If you look at how FFC is act, they don't, part of FFC people don't welcome the peace agreement in Juba, and is still working against it. And it was very strange that some of the slogan on this 21st of October was against peace agreement itself, by the way, from some parties, and they want to bring down the Juba agreement. And if you look back to this revolution, it was for freedom, peace, and justice. And you have now a far walk in peace being done by Juba agreement. So why we are against it? Why you call against this? People think bringing this dilemma and this confusion to street will give them an opportunity. And even you said that the old regime people are still calling. I don't have any fair regard this. This is being isolated, and this is could not come again back, and we have to recall who we won the battle against. It is them, and they don't yet have this opportunity to come back. Now we are facing our own failure.
Yes, that's the alarming thing. Yes,
yep.
I agree with you. This is a very important point, as you mentioned, because we are thinking, it seems that we are run short of time, and almost because time is over. The issues were very tough and very good. Ustad Ahmed was very transparent, very clear. He gave a clear picture, and I'm glad.
And you will see a different way of doing politics by his return to Sudan, I think.
Yes, you will see. Yes, he will change.
Thank
And
you.
our friend Engineer Mohammed Mohammed Farouk Salman also was very clear on this issue which we talk about, the Trump decision and about the rallies of the 21st of October. We hope next time we come again, because the issues that is still hot, the implications and the after effect of the delisting of Sudan will become. Some investigation about what happened in the 21st of October are going on, because one of the revolutionaries died, was shot dead.
Yeah, we got, I guess, 2 martyrs in my area, I think.
In your area. So next week, we hope to come with the same 2 gentlemen so that we can continue on the issues. And thank you, dear viewers, for being with us in the last hour. We hope to see you next week on almost the same issues to see the outcome of delisting of Sudan and the revolution and the peace agreement. Thank you, Ustad Ahmed Tugud.
Thank you.
Engineer Mohammed Farouk Salman. Thank you, dear viewers. Bye. See you next week.
See you.